Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Learning to Live. I'm Dustin.
I'm Ilyas.
Silver PC.
By popular demand, I'm back. I know you all love
Back
me.
again.
He loves me. So I just had to do a little favor here, because I just love the show and I love the people. I just want to just throw a little bit more knowledge on it.
Awesome. No, so we're here today, it just seems like as a psychiatric nurse, the beds are starting to fill up with more youth and everything, and it just seems like we're, as parents, not getting it.
Yeah. And I think you guys do a good job of it personally, but
thank you.
I think it's true for other parents that they're struggling with their kids, with their mental health issues and how they're coping with it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, cool.
Especially now with COVID, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's so many factors. It just seems like, I think homes are probably more tense.
Yeah.
Stress from, parents not being in work, where's that paycheck gonna come? And, and that's why I brought you on, is because we need to hear it from the youth. The youth speaks out.
We got our voice.
From Silver PC. Yes. So first thing we're going to talk about is kind of anxiety.
Yeah.
So tell me how's that playing out from your perspective and your friends and that sort of thing. What should parents know?
Well, with anxiety, that's the big mental challenge that's happening with a lot of youth these days, and that it can come from a whole lot of different sources, but it's definitely overwhelming the minds of the youth. It's putting bad thoughts into their minds. You know what I mean? I think it can.
How is this manifesting?
It can be caused by a lot of things. It can be caused by certain expectations that are placed onto them by either themselves, their friends, their parents, their teachers, stuff like that. And it can also manifest from their environment. For example, maybe their school environment isn't the best. Maybe it's super stressful. Maybe their home life isn't the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe they're worrying about where the money's coming, how we're going to get food on the table, the roof over our head.
Which legitimate concerns at this point.
All of these are legitimate, valid concerns. I guess. You know what I mean? And let's see, environment, expectations, and I feel activities also play a big role in that as well.
So what would activities
Activities
kind of further?
Activities could be extracurricular, or they could be jobs. They could be you're in a, say, soccer team, and this also plays into expectations as well and environmental, but I feel it's big enough where it could be in its own category, because you could be in a soccer team and a bunch of your peers are doing really well, and your coach isn't exactly giving you that same push as he's giving the others, right? In terms of complimenting as well and attention. And so that can cause anxiety, oh, I'm letting my team down, I'm getting carried. That's a big term that a lot of kids like to use in terms of multiplayer, or
Parents. Getting carried is a translation of kind of rejection, or that they're holding the team back. So if you hear that, that's going to be an area where we maybe need have a little discussion with our child.
Exactly.
If that comes up.
Getting carried is essentially being dead weight, I guess you could say. I just personally hear getting carried a lot from my friends, and that's where I get a lot of these ideas, expectations, environmental, and activities from.
Speaking of environmental, I kind of like to go back to that.
Sure.
Because I think our whole society's pretty much changed.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a lot more doing things from home. Even once everything clears up and we're kind of back to normal. I still think there's a new normal. So your friends and peers and everybody that you're kind of associating with and observing, how has the being at home changed the way of anxiety affects them?
Well, a lot of my friends are they have a presence on the internet. They're very in tune with the internet,
Yeah.
So they would, I'm sure you're familiar with social anxiety, correct?
Yes.
For those who don't know, social anxiety is where you are scared of interacting with other people, and in a more real life setting instead of online. And online is a way for people to cope with their social anxiety in a way.
Right. True.
That is kind of mitigated online because there isn't as much social anxiety as you have a mask to hide behind, correct?
Right.
But to replace that,
or what do you guys call those? The what is your
avatar?
Avatar. Yes.
Yeah.
You can hide behind an avatar.
Yeah, exactly. But to replace social anxiety, there's there's a need to fit in with your peers and to like mask yourselves, because there's a sense of community that's really being needed in this time, and the sense of community, I feel, adds to people's anxiety, and it becomes big enough to the point that it replaces people's thoughts of social anxiety and more communal anxiety in a way.
Okay. So how does that man? Okay, if the social anxiety was kind of their problem, then how does this communal? Is it like maybe the not wanting to be rejected from the electronic
group of
environment?
Friends. Exactly. And that's been like extended tenfold now, because the internet's basically our only form of communication for a lot of people,
Right.
especially if you're especially scared of COVID-19, which is valid. Well, we're especially scared of COVID-19,
Yeah.
so we're basically on the internet now a lot. But it becomes, this communal anxiety becomes so big because of COVID that you don't want to like lose your friends or like lose what's known as clout. Right. On the internet. Clout is basically popularity, I guess you could say.
Reputation.
Reputation, exactly. And so that fear becomes so huge that it overtakes social anxiety and becomes like a huge thing. And I feel like that would fit under more expectations and environmental at the same time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. Mm-hmm. Cool. So now the key question, my son. Mm-hmm. Parents, listen up. Please listen. This is what we need to do as parents. When someone is brave enough to tell us, don't disagree with them.
Of course.
Listen, and then enact it. How do we help that as parents? How do we provide support? And first of all, how are we aware? How do we identify that this is going on? Mm-hmm. That the anxiety is going up to the next level? I mean, I think that luckily we have a fairly open communication, and we're checking in with each other a lot. Mm-hmm. But maybe just due to lack of practice. I mean, I'm a psych nurse. It's what I do. We better have communication.
Oh boy, if you didn't have
yeah, I'd be in big trouble. But for to information for parents out there who maybe haven't historically had a more open line of communication and stuff, what do they need to kind of look for to support their children through these anxious times and anxiety in general?
Mm-hmm. Well, before I go into my full-on explanation, I want to use an example with you, me, and Hoya upstairs.
Yeah.
And it
Hoya's mom, by the way.
Yeah, Hoya's mom. That's my mom. Yeah. I love her so much. We should get her in like a TriCast at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we should. We all need to come on. Yeah. I've had Rashida and I and Ilyas and I. We need to get the whole trifold up.
Coming soon. To a computer near you. So my example would be, so I was in robotics a year back, correct? Yes. It was something like that. And I wasn't enjoying it very well. I feel like there was it was anxiety inducing for me, and it was a combination of the three that we were talking about earlier in terms of expectations, environment, and activities. And I wasn't doing the best mentally. And so my parents, they started observing on how I was doing in this new environment, and then they started talking to me about it. They're like, okay, so how are you doing in this robotics? Like, are you doing okay? Like, everything going good? You guys winning? Stuff like that. It was like the base questions, but they were able to like extract from those questions how I was doing mentally about robotics. And so so through that example, I feel like we can go into like the big thing about how we can deal with youth anxiety as for parents.
Parents, yeah. Well,
and
I hope you're not speaking as parents, but speak to them, please.
Yeah. So the first and most important thing is observing their behavior. Like in this new environment, or maybe like an environment they've been in for a while, maybe they're acting different, maybe they're thinking different, maybe their personality is starting to change. And this could be due to the heavy anxiety induced by this area that's that they're not comfortable in, that could be caused by any of the three or all of the three. And for me, it was all of the three, right? And so my parents, they took the time to observe my behavior, and they started to notice that I wasn't doing the best. I was starting to become a little bit more mellow, a bit more sad. And they were like, and so they decided to go and delve more into those questions. And so, and of course, they also stressed, if you decide that you don't want to be in this robotics program, it's not your fault. You did great.
Yes.
And that's a huge thing as well. Also providing the backbone for for your kids. Because say that they don't want to be in that anxiety-inducing area anymore, and they feel it's not healthy for them, and the parents also deem that it's not healthy for them either, as you guys did.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your good observation skills. So it could, so through that, they could, I lost my track of thought.
No, that's okay. But one thing I was going to say from the parental perspective, and speaking to my fellow parents out there, we have this innate thing that maybe it's the way we were raised. I'm not sure exactly where it comes from, but our kids need to follow through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and I think that was something that Rashida and I had to struggle with.
Yeah.
Is we didn't want you to run from anything. We didn't want you to start something and not finish it. But we also, that obsession with starting and not finishing, you have to be observant enough to go, what is the end game?
Exactly.
What is the outcome? Is this really going to be that much valuable? Is it really going to hold that much value if they were to walk away? And for you, the damage was more than the value.
Exactly. Like, it's like a nice thing on my resume, for example, right?
Yeah.
As I'm applying to a college or a job, like, oh, you reported robotics, right? However, I feel my mentality, like my mental state at that time, was so out of whack, and also my grades were starting to be impacted by this as well.
Yes.
And so we gauged the pros and the cons, and we decided this is not the best area to go into.
Yeah. So you're an open kid, though.
Yeah.
Not everybody's that open. So what would be your advice to parents? How should they approach if they start to know that their child's getting introverted? As a parent, first I'll tell you, don't go at it as in a critical way, or that gosh darn it, they need to follow through.
Yeah, don't go in an attack form, because at the end of the day, you're the parents. You're supposed to be their protectors and their guardians, right?
Yes.
So you should also be their bedrock in terms of their mental state. So go in there like more nuanced, you know, with okay, hey, how's it going, buddy? So I noticed you've been first, of course, we're going back to the observation thing. You can't start any of these conversations without noticing how the kids are acting at all. And this becomes tenfold, this becomes much more important when the kid isn't exactly more open when it comes to conversations, because it's on you to bring it up in the conversation. So if you don't really come with all the facts, the kid is going to think something's up, you know? And also it's important for,
which could be even more counterproductive. Like that can actually build more of a barrier, more of a wall. So
exactly. So it's important that you get everything correct and you don't rush it. Don't rush it. But also know the time to go as well, because you don't want to delay for many, like a long time.
I would say when isolation starts, especially if your child is one that doesn't isolate a whole lot, but even if they are prone to that, any increase in introversion, and isolation, I would say is a red flag. Am I right there?
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of what we started to notice, a change of behavior. We started to notice that Ilyas was not, just seemed more tired, more wanting to be away from everything, more defeated kind of. I mean, he wasn't obviously, but that's kind of how it presented.
Like I kind of just wanted to like go back into bed. And
and like whatever. Like, and that's not.
And that's typically not what I am.
No.
I listen, I like to think.
Yeah, as you guys say.
What was I going to say? Basically, for kids that are more introverted, it's important for the parents to step up and be the leader of the conversation, and then ease the kid into it, let their barriers drop, and so they can get into the meat of the problem and how they can solve it. I feel that's most important.
And one thing I think is important, and you might get a couple of, oh no, nothing's wrong. but I think it's very important to ask what they need and what's going on first, and what they need.
Absolutely.
And then follow through with it.
Exactly.
Even if it's kind of against your nature. If it's safe, follow through with it.
Exactly.
That builds confidence.
Mhm.
That shows you're consistent. That shows, even though you are obviously on their side, that lets them know you're on their side, because they're feeling defeated, isolated, alone.
Yeah.
They need more than anything, even though they're pulling themselves away to be even more alone, they need to know you support them.
Exactly. Yeah, they need to know that support, because they're on a difficult time in this point, because they're in their teens, they're starting to become adults, and they're dealing with anxiety inducing area, and if it goes for long enough, it can become traumatic. So it's important that you need to be there for your kids, especially if they're more on the introverted side, because you don't exactly want them to be introverted for like the rest of their lives. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with being a little bit introverted, but like when it's a huge change in their personality is what I mean, like that you
and
need to be there.
That's what, as parents, we really want to look for, a change in behavior. And we saw with Ilyas, there was definitely a change in behavior, and
Absolutely.
we moved forward, and it's actually become a positive thing. We understand now quicker what he needs. And the biggest thing he needs is, first, to know that we're not going to judge him, and second, to know that when we listen, we will follow through. We're going to listen to him, and we're going to follow through with what he requests of us.
Exactly.
So yeah, so that dealing with anxiety
is a huge topic.
Nice.
And I'm like, glad to get this out, because it's a very important message, especially with COVID-19 causing this quarantine and everything.
Yeah.
Like mental health becomes a much more important thing for the kids, especially with me and all of that. And so I'm glad to have these open conversations with you, bro.
Yeah. Oh yeah, always, bro. So, we like this channel to be applicable to you. Exactly. We're here for you. We want you to leave comments, ask questions. Parents, if you're struggling with anything, we'd gladly do a show together on, and your Ilyas is an open book.
Like
pretty much.
We can do a Q&A session.
We could even do a live webcast if that would be helpful. Exactly. But thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to say what I always say, because it's vitally important. Be strong, be brave, be courageous. Please subscribe, hit the bell. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.
Have a good one.